on the monks and nuns of Amida branch of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism by Reverend Josho Adrian. This book is dedicated to all sentient beings. May they make indestructible connections with Amida Buddha, entrust to him, say his name, Namo Amida Bu, and wish to be born in his pure land. Preface. Amidaji follows the wise and compassionate instructions of the late 23rd Monshu of Nishi Hongwanji Temple, Shonyo Shonin, Kosho Otani, who encouraged non-Japanese Nembutsu followers to organize themselves independently, and who agreed with the first non-Japanese ordinations done in Europe by Reverend Harry Piper, Shaku Shogun Hoshi, and Reverend Jean Erikel, Shaku Joan. In the same spirit initiated by Shonyo Shonin, of sincere aspiration to spread the authentic Jodo Shinshu Buddhist teachings in a non-Japanese environment, Amidaji affirms the right to have its own ordination platform. Thus, a candidate for monkhood or priesthood can receive his or her ordination from any of the monks or nuns affiliated with Amidaji after a serious examination and going through the ceremony of ordination that can be held at any of our temples or dojos. The conditions for ordination, as well as various other technical matters related to this topic, were already mentioned in the Amidaji Constitution, so I will not refer to them again in this short book. Also, many details about the daily life of monks and nuns can be discussed during the Nembutsu retreats, and you will discover them by yourself in your own spiritual journey. As for this book, it is just a short introduction that can be used as a foundation for the present and future generations. May Amida Buddha bless our monks and nuns and help them to assist others to receive faith in Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Bu. Josho Adrian Cirlea, Amidaji Temple, December 28, 2566, Buddhist era, 2022 CE. There are 4 important footnotes to the preface. All 4 footnotes are found on page 5 of the preface. Footnote 1. Shonyo Shonin Kosho Otani lived between 1911 to 2002 and introduced Jodo Shinshu Buddhism in Europe. Footnote 2. Reverend Harry Piper Shaku Shogun Hoshi lived between 1907 to 1978. He was the first Jodo Shinshu monk or priest in Europe. Footnote 3. Reverend Jean Erikel Shaku Joan lived between 1930 to 2005. He was ordained by Reverend Harry Piper and also ordained others. Footnote 4. Technical terms in this book are also explained face to face during our Dharma meetings, so there is no need to add a glossary. Monks and Nuns of the Last Dharma Age. The doctrinal base for Amidaji ordinations. Both Honen Shonin and Shinran Shonin were ordained Tendai monks. Although they left that school, they continued to wear their monk robes, and while Honen remained celibate, Shinran got married and had 6 children. Before him and after him, many monks had secret wives and children, but Shinran went public about his marriage and continued to wear the monk's robes. Also, after he and Master Honen were banished by the emperor, stripped of their ordination status, and given secular names, they also kept their robes. At that time, Shinran said about himself that he was neither monk nor lay, but he continued to wear the robes of a monk. Later, they were both pardoned, so their former status was restored. Why did Shinran marry? Because he wanted to show that salvation offered by Amida Buddha does not make any discrimination between those who keep the precept of celibacy and those who are attached to their wives and children, or have various other blind passions. Why did he say that he was neither a monk nor lay? There are 2 reasons for this. Firstly, although the emperor stripped him of his monkhood and Shinran was given a secular name, he did not consider himself to be a lay person living a worldly life without any religious aspirations. Secondly, although he was pardoned and his status restored, he was still not able to live the life of a monk belonging to the right Dharma age. while at the same time he had more aspirations than an ordinary lay person. Later, all his ordained disciples followed his example and got married. Even now, the clergy of Jodo Shinshu, both men and women, get married and have children like the rest of Japanese Buddhist monks of other schools. So, it is important to realize that Shinran did not deny his monk ordination by saying that he is neither monk nor lay, but only his spiritual capacities to be like the monks of the right Dharma age when Shakyamuni and his direct disciples were in the world. By saying neither monk nor lay, he actually meant neither a virtuous monk of the right Dharma age nor a lay. Thus, there is no problem if we, his ordained disciples of modern times, call ourselves monks and nuns, as long as we keep in mind that we are not the virtuous monks of that long-gone era, but the decadent monks of this last Dharma age. Although Shinran was public about his marriage, which was approved by his master, and he knew that Amida saves everybody, either monk or lay, without any discrimination, then why did he keep his monk's robes and kesa? The reason for doing so is to be found in the doctrine of the three Dharma ages and the lamp for the last Dharma age, Mappo Tomio Ki, by Master Seicho. Both Shinran and his master Honen made reference to this work, and Shinran even quoted it almost entirely in chapter 6 of his Kagyo Shinsho. This is how important it was for him, and why we, his present-day disciples, who also wear the monk robes and get married, must understand it thoroughly. Here is how Master Seicho explained the doctrine of the three Dharma ages. Quote, with regard to the Dharma, there are three ages, and among people there are three levels. The instruction imparting the teaching and precepts flourishes and declines according to the age, and words of condemnation or praise are accepted or rejected depending on the person. The fortunes of the three ancient eras arose and declined in different ways, and the wisdom and enlightenment of beings of the 500-year periods after the Buddha's demise differ. How can beings be saved by only one path? How can they be disciplined according to one principle? End quote. Generally speaking, the doctrine of the three Dharma ages refers to the gradual decline of the capacities of beings to practice the Dharma and attain realization through it. Thus, there is a difference between the time when Shakyamuni Buddha was in human body and influenced directly through his example and his holy presence those gathered around him, and the periods far away in time when only the teaching remains, but not the teacher. According to Seicho and the passages he quoted, the first period of 500 years after the Buddha's departure from his physical body, that is, parinirvana, is called the right Dharma age. The second Dharma age is called the semblance or imitative Dharma age, and it lasted 100 years after the previous one. The third and last Dharma age lasts for 10,000 years after the second age. Master Seicho quoted the Sutra of Mahayamaya, where it is stated, quote, during the first 500 years after the Buddha's parinirvana, 7 holy monks, sages all, including Mahakasyapa, will uphold the right Dharma in succession, so that it does not perish. After 500 years, the right Dharma will become completely extinct. 600 years after, the 95 kinds of non-Buddhist teachings will arise and vie with each other, but Ashvaghosha will appear and subdue them all. 700 years after, Nagarjuna will appear and demolish the banners of wrong views. 800 years after, monks will give themselves to self-indulgence, and only a few will attain the fruit of enlightenment. 900 years after, menials will be made into monks and nuns. 1,000 years after, on hearing of the contemplation of bodily impurity, they will be enraged and give it no thought. 1,100 years after, monks and nuns will take wives and husbands, and will break and revile the precepts. 1,200 years after, monks and nuns will have children. 1,300 years after, the yellow monks' robes will be changed to white. 1,400 years after, the 4 kinds of disciples will all be like hunters, and will sell the offerings made to the 3 treasures. Here I declare, 1,500 years after, 2 monks in the land of Kosambi will fall into dispute with each other and finally kill each other. As a result, the teachings will be stored in the Naga's palace. End quote. Words like the right Dharma will become completely extinct, or the teachings will be stored in the Naga's palace, means that although one can still find the written text of the Buddha's teaching, the practices based on personal power are as good as non-existent or practically non-existent, because nobody can attain enlightenment through them. The requirements of the path of self-power within the Buddhist teachings do not accord any more with the capacities of beings. This is what started to happen in the semblance Dharma Age, and it is a constant reality in the last Dharma Age. We have to bear in mind that the expression the right Dharma in the above text refers to the Dharma methods based on self-power, the path of sages, taught in the right Dharma Age, as there is also a right Dharma or most suitable Dharma method for the last Dharma Age. This is the Amida Dharma, that is the primal vow of Amida Buddha and all teachings that are in agreement with the primal vow. I'm saying this because in the primal vow there is also a warning against slandering the right Dharma, which means to deny the existence of Amida and his pure land, as well as the efficacy of his primal vow. So, if the observance of precepts and various self-power practices leading to enlightenment in this very life were the right Dharma for the right Dharma Age, the primal vow and Amida Dharma is the right Dharma for the last Dharma Age, when people cannot attain enlightenment through their own powers, and the primal vow alone remains the only path that affords passage for all beings, no matter how meager their spiritual capacities are. Thus, there must always be a correspondence between the practices and the capacities of beings, as well as the time in which they live. The primal vow is actually the right Dharma for all ages, because beings of any time can be saved through it. But, for the sake of our present discussion, we will focus on the specifics of each of the Dharma ages. How can beings be saved by only one path? Said Master Shaicho. And we say, how can beings of the last Dharma age attain enlightenment through the means and practices given to those living in the presence of the historical Buddha or his direct successors, the right Dharma age? It is like rubbing green wood to build a fire. Fire cannot be made, for time is not right, said Master Tao Chao, in an appropriate comparison. Also, Master Shinran said it very clearly, quote, "Truly we know that the teaching of the path of sages were intended for the period when the Buddha was in the world, and for the right Dharma age. They are altogether inappropriate for the times and beings of the semblance and last Dharma ages, and the age when the Dharma has become extinct. Already their time has passed. They are no longer in accord with beings." End quote. Thus, the Great Collection Sutra states, quote, "Out of billions of sentient beings who seek to perform practices and cultivate the way in the last Dharma age, not one will gain realization." End quote. Master Tao Chao said, quote, "This is now the last Dharma age. It is the evil world of the 5 defilements. This one gate, the Pure Land Way, it is the only path that affords passage." Thus, the multitudes of this evil defiled world, ignorant of the distinctive characteristics of the latter age, revile the behavior and attitudes of monks and nuns, but all people of the present, whether monk or lay, must take measure of their own capabilities. End quote. To judge and revile the monks and nuns of the last Dharma age on the basis of the principles and capacities of the right Dharma age is a grave mistake, and arguing against this very idea is why Master Saicho wrote Lamp for the last Dharma age. So let us go back to this text. After he presented the above passage from the Sutra of Mahayama, Saicho said, words in brackets, are my own. Quote, "This passage is also found in the Nirvana Sutra, fascicle 18, the Benevolent King's Sutra, and others. According to these sutra passages, after 1,500 years, there will be no precepts, meditation, or wisdom. Therefore, the Great Collection Sutra, fascicle 51, states, during the first 500 years after my nirvana, monks and others will be resolute in attaining emancipation through the right Dharma that I have taught, through the self-power methods. In the next 500 years, they will be resolute in meditation. In the next 500 years, they will be resolute in listening to the teaching. In the next 500 years, they will be resolute in constructing temples. In the last 500 years, they will be resolute in conflict and disputes. And the pure Dharma, that is, the Dharma methods based on purity of meditation, wisdom, and precepts, will sink into dormancy." This passage means that during the first 3 500-year periods, the three dharmas of precepts, meditation, and wisdom will in succession be resolutely upheld. This corresponds to the two periods in the quotation above. The right dharma lasting 500 years and the semblance dharma lasting 1,000 years. The period from that of temple construction on is the last Dharma age. Thus, Chi's commentary on the Diamond Sutra states, the right Dharma age lasts 500 years and the semblance Dharma age 1,000. After these 1,500 years, the right Dharma will perish utterly. We know therefore that the period from temple construction on belongs to the last Dharma age. End quote. After some calculations based on various historical sources of the time, Master Saicho concludes that his time, he lived between 767 to 822 CE, belongs to the end of the semblance Dharma age. Conduct in this period is already the same as in the last Dharma age. Then he explained, words in brackets are my own. Quote, in the last Dharma age only the verbal teaching remains. There is no practice or realization. If there were precepts, then there would be the breaking of precepts. But already there are no precepts. By the violation of what precept can the precept said to be broken? And since there is not even the breaking of precepts, how much less is there the observance of precepts? Therefore the Great Collection Sutra states, after the Buddha's nirvana, those without precepts will gradually fill the land. End quote. By saying that only the verbal teaching remains, he didn't mean that in the last Dharma age there will be no written text, as we can clearly see that our world is filled with sutras translations easily available online or in printed form, but to the fact that the Dharma will remain an empty talk, as nobody will be able to put self-power teachings into practice. Next, what is this idea that there are no precepts? Well, it refers to the fact that although we can read about the precepts, they are no longer useful because of our low capacities to help us attain enlightenment. Talking about precepts to low-level people like us, monks or lay, living in this last Dharma age is like asking terminally ill patients on the deathbed to practice sports, or like asking madmen to act sanely and responsibly and reasonably. Just like there are no physical requirements for terminally ill patients, there are no moral precepts for monks or lay of our age, in the same way that the sports exist for healthy individuals, but it does not exist for terminally ill patients. Moral precepts exist for spiritually evolved people who can really follow them, while they do not practically exist for wretched beings like ourselves. Also, just like reasonable actions can be expected from sane people, one cannot demand madmen to act sanely, or monks of the last Dharma age to behave like monks of the right Dharma age, when Shakyamuni or his direct disciples were present. This, of course, does not mean that we should not try to have a good behavior in our daily life, but it indicates that no matter the amount of success, we cannot be judged according to the standards of the right Dharma age. Master Saicho wrote, quote, in the last Dharma age, with which we are concerned here, there are monks in name only. These nominal monks are the true treasures of the age. Are they not fields of merit? If, in the last Dharma age, there were those who observed precepts, they would seem strange and suspect, like a tiger in the marketplace. Who would believe in such things? End quote. Those who seem to be successful in perfectly observing the moral precepts are not actually ordinary monks and nuns, but great bodhisattvas who manifest in this world to maintain an example and uphold the Dharma, so that Buddhist disciples, especially those who are not open towards Amida's primal vow, be kept on the path. Master Saicho quoted the Nirvana Sutra. Quote, in the last Dharma age, a multitude of 120,000 great bodhisattvas uphold the Dharma, so that it does not perish. End quote. Then he explained, quote, since this statement concerns bodhisattvas of high rank, it is irrelevant for our discussion here. End quote. This is why our main concern are the decadent monks and nuns of the last Dharma age who cannot keep the moral precepts, and not the exceptions that are actually bodhisattva manifestations. Master Saicho wrote, quote, question, we have already seen the subject of monks' conduct in the right, semblance, and last Dharma ages discussed in many sutras. Is it stated in the sacred scriptures, however, that nominal monks of the last Dharma age are the true treasure? Answer. The Great Collection Sutra, Fascicle 9 states, it is like genuine gold being regarded as a priceless treasure. If there were no genuine gold, silver would be regarded as a priceless treasure. If there were no silver, then brass, as spurious treasure, would be regarded as priceless. If there were no brass, then copper or nickel, iron, pewter or lead would be regarded as priceless. All such metals are the world's treasures, but it is the Buddha Dharma that is priceless. If there were no treasure of Buddha, the Pratyeka Buddhas are supreme. If there are no Pratyeka Buddhas, the Arhat is supreme. If there is no Arhat, other sages are regarded as supreme. If there are no other sages, beings who have realized meditation are regarded as supreme. If there are no beings who have realized meditation, those who strictly observe precepts are regarded as supreme. If there are none who strictly observe precepts, monks who imperfectly observe precepts are regarded as supreme. If there are none who imperfectly observe precepts, monks in name only, who shave their heads and wear a monk's robes, are regarded as supreme. Compared with followers of the 95 kinds of wrong paths, that is non-Buddhist, they are regarded as belonging to the first rank. They are worthy of receiving the world's homage. They are the field of merits for beings. Why? Because they show that they are held to be in awe by sentient beings. If one pays homage to such monks, protecting and supporting them, before long one will surely attain the state of discernment. In this passage, 8 kinds of priceless treasures are mentioned: the Tathagata, Pratyeka Buddhas, Shravakas, and those of the first 3 fruits, beings who have realized meditation, monks who observe precepts, and monks who break precepts, and monks in name only, who are without precepts. These are the priceless treasures of the right, semblance, and last Dharma ages, respectively. The first 4 belong to the right Dharma age, the next 3 to the semblance Dharma age, and the last to the last Dharma age. Thus, we know clearly that those who break precepts and those who have no precepts are all true treasures. End quote. As we have seen above, each Dharma age has its own spiritual treasures, or monks and nuns, who act as teachers for sentient beings of that specific age. These should be judged only in accordance with the spiritual capacities of their times, and should be respected and cared for by their contemporaries. In comparison with the monks of the right Dharma age, who are like pure gold, monks and nuns in the last Dharma age are like lead. But for people who do not have access to gold, lead is the greatest treasure. Here is another passage from the precious work of Master Saicho, discussing why the monks of the last Dharma age should not be judged in accordance with the standard of those living in the right Dharma age. The following also shows that some sutra passages who blame monks who break precepts and those supporting them apply to the right Dharma age and not to the monks and their supporters of the semblance and last Dharma age. Words in brackets are my own. Quote, question. Humbling reading the preceding passage from the sutra, I see that monks who break precepts and monks in name only are indeed all true treasures. Why is it stated in the Nirvana Sutra and the Great Collection Sutra, if the king and the ministers make offerings to monks who break precepts, the 3 calamities will arise in the land, and they will eventually be born in hell? It is so even with monks who break precepts. How much more so, then, with the monks who have no precepts? Thus, with regard to a single person, the monk who breaks precepts, the Tathagata speaks at times with censure and at times with praise. Is there not the fault of 2 contradictory judgments in the exposition of the one sage? Answer. Your reasoning is in error. In the Nirvana Sutra and the other sutras, there is an injunction against breaking precepts in the right Dharma age. This is not spoken with regard to monks of the semblance and last Dharma ages. Although the terms are the same, the times differ. There is injunction or sanction according to the age. This is the great sage's intent. In the world-honored one, there is no fault of 2 contradictory judgments. If that is the case, how do we know that the Nirvana Sutra and the other sutras prohibit breaking precepts during the right Dharma age, and that this does not apply to monks of the semblance and last Dharma ages? Answer. It is revealed in terms of the 8 kinds of true treasure taught in the passage from the Great Collection Sutra quoted before. This is the proof, for depending on the age, all are regarded as priceless. However, the monk who breaks precepts in the time of the right Dharma defiles the purity of the Sangha. Hence the Buddha strictly prohibits this and does not allow him to enter. Thus it is stated in the Nirvana Sutra, fascicle 3, the Tathagata has now entrusted the supreme right Dharma, the Dharma of the right Dharma age, to kings, ministers, counselors, monks, and nuns. If there are some who break their precepts and slander the right Dharma, the kings, ministers, and 4 groups of Buddhists should earnestly correct them. Such kings, ministers, and others will gain immeasurable merit. They are my disciples. They are true hearers. They will attain merit beyond measure. Such words of injunction appear in numerous places throughout the sutras. All are injunctions explained for the right Dharma age, not teachings for the semblance and last Dharma ages. This is known because there is no Dharma that can be abused. For the right Dharma, the self-power practices of the right Dharma age cannot be practiced in the latter part of the semblance Dharma age and in the last Dharma age. What is there that can be called abuse of the Dharma? There are no precepts to be broken. Who is there that can be called one who breaks precepts? Further, in such times there is no practice of right Dharma for a great king to safeguard. How should the 3 calamities be fomented? And how could the practice of precepts and wisdom be lost? Moreover, in the semblance and last Dharma ages, there is no one who attains the fruit of realization. Why should it be taught that the great king be advised by the 2 kinds of sages? Hence we know that the teachings in the preceding passages all refer to the right Dharma age, when precepts are observed, for only then can there be breaking of precepts. End quote. The capacities of monks and nuns as well as lay people to observe precepts gradually becomes lower and lower as time passes in the semblance Dharma age. Quote, concerning the 1,000 years of the semblance Dharma age, during the first 500 years, the observance of precepts wanes by degrees, and the breaking of precepts gradually spreads. Although precepts are observed and practices performed, there is no realization. At that time, monks will gradually come to desire and keep the 8 kinds of impure possessions. End quote. According to the Nirvana Sutra, the justification for such changes in the behavior of monks will be influenced by Mara, who will gradually gain strength and spread false views, such as Buddha allows monks and nuns, quote, to acquire and keep menials, servants, cows, sheep, elephants, horses, and so on, including copper and iron kettles and cauldrons, copper bowls of various sizes, and necessities of daily life. They may cultivate fields and plant seeds, buy and sell, engage in trade, and store grains and rice. End quote. There is a great difference between pitying sentient beings, saving them as they are, as Amida does, not judging them, etc., and allowing them to make wrong deeds. Buddhas never taught that breaking precepts is good, nor did they agree with the degradation of monks and nuns, but it was a thing that could not be prevented in any way, as they could not be forced by the enlightened ones to have the same pure behavior as the monks and nuns of the right Dharma age. Quote, next, said Master Saicho, in the latter half of the semblance Dharma age, observance of precepts will decline and diminish, and breaking precepts will increase enormously. End quote. However, those monks who break precepts, although spiritually dead, they were like the usefulness of the musk after the musk deer has died. Quote, the Sutra of the 10 Wheels states, if there is a person who, according to my teaching, abandons home life and yet commits evil, then though he is not a shramana, he calls himself a shramana. And though he does no pure acts, he calls himself one who performs pure acts. Such a monk opens the storehouse of all good acts and virtues to all the devas, nagas, and yakshas, thus becoming a true teacher of sentient beings. Though he cannot be said to know content, with but few desires, he shaves his head and beard, and dons monk's robes. Through this he increases the roots of good of sentient beings, and discloses the path of good for the beings of the heavens. Although the monk who breaks precepts is said to be a dead man, the traces of the power of precepts in him are like the cow's liver. The cow may have died, but people can, in full awareness, derive the medicinal liver from it. It is like the youthfulness of the musk after the musk deer has died. End quote. Master Saicho commented, quote, as we see it is stated in the Nirvana Sutra, in the poisonous Kara forest there is a single persimmon tree. There is a parable teaching that the momentum of the semblance Dharma age is declining, and that in the defiled world characterized by the breaking of precepts, there are but 1 or 2 monks who observe precepts. Further, it is stated, although the monk who breaks precepts is said to be a dead man, it is like the usefulness of the musk after the musk deer has died. he becomes the true teacher of sentient beings. You should know clearly that this statement, that at these times monks who break the precepts are gradually tolerated and become the fields of merit of the people of the world, is identical to the statement of the Great Collection Sutra above. End quote. Master Saicho further said, quote, next, after the end of the semblance Dharma Age, there are no precepts whatsoever. Recognizing the momentum of the times, the Buddha praises those who are monks in name only, declaring them to be the field of merits for the world, in order to save the people of the last Dharma Age. The Great Collection Sutra, fascicle 52 states, if in the last age that follows, there is a monk in name only, who in accord with my teaching shaves his hair and beard and wears a monk robe, and if there are lay supporters making offerings to him, these latter will acquire immeasurable merit. Further, the Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish states, if in the future, in the last age when the Dharma vehicle is about to perish, nominal monks should take wives and have them bear children, still lay supporters should pay homage to groups of 4 or more monks, just as they would to Shariputra, Mahama Magliana, and the others. End quote. Also, it is stated in the Great Collection Sutra, quote, the crime of striking and reproaching a monk who wears a robe but breaks or does not keep the precepts is the same as causing 1 trillion Buddhas to shed blood. If, because of the Dharma that I teach, sentient beings shave their hair and beard and don monks' robes, though they may not observe the precepts, they all bear the seal of nirvana already. Those people indicate the way to nirvana to various people and heavenly beings. These people are already within the 3 treasures, have given rise to faith and respect in their minds, and surpass the 95 kinds of non-Buddhist path. These people will invariably enter nirvana quickly. They excel all laymen and secular people, with the exception of the householders who have attained endurance. For this reason, heavenly beings and humans should venerate them, even if they break the precepts. End quote. The passage is so clear and wonderful that I do not think it needs any further explanations, except this sentence, quote, they excel all laymen and secular people, with the exception of the householders who have attained endurance. End quote. Endurance or perseverance, shanti, is part of the 6 paramitas or perfections that I already explained in the Jodo Shinshu context in my recent book. Simply stated, one who entrusts to Amida Buddha has natural perseverance in the sense that he will never be interrupted in his faith. Anyone, whether monk or lay, can have this, as faith in Amida appears in the hearts of all beings, no matter if they are ordained or not. The monks, nuns, as well as laymen and laywomen of the last Dharma Age will all enter nirvana at the end of their present life. This is what is meant by enter nirvana quickly in the above passage, if they entrust to Amida Buddha and say his name in faith. However, those monks and nuns of the last Dharma Age that do not have faith in Amida, but continue to engage in miscellaneous practices in the present, will be reborn in the times of future Buddhas like Maitreya and enter nirvana through their guidance. Quote, the Sutra of Great Compassion states, the Buddha said to Ananda, in the future age, when the Dharma is about to fall into complete extinction, monks and nuns who have abandoned home life in accord with the Dharma that I teach will wander together from one wine house to another, leading their children by the hand. While following the Dharma, they will commit impure acts. Ananda, while following the Dharma, people will perform the acts of Shramanas, merely inform and declare themselves Shramanas. In appearance, they will resemble Shramanas, and they will still wear monks' robes. In the auspicious Kalpa, when the Buddhas from Maitreya down to Rakana Tathagata appear, such Shramanas will, under those Buddhas, gradually enter nirvana in the realm of nirvana, without residue. None will be left behind. Why? Because among the Shramanas under the guidance of the Tathagatas, those who say the Buddha's name even once, awakening one moment of trust, will gain virtue through their act that will ultimately not be in vain. Thus, through the Buddha wisdom, I discern the Dharma realm. End quote. The above fragment, and especially the words, quote, those who say the Buddha's name even once, awakening one moment of trust, end quote, are a clear indication that those nominal monks and nuns of the last Dharma Age who do not entrust to Amida's primal vow and do not say his name in faith now, will surely do it in the time of Maitreya and the future Buddhas. Master Saicho said, Quote, all those sutras referring to the age speak of the nominal monks of the last Dharma age in the future as the venerable teachers of that period. If the monks of the last Dharma age are constrained by the injunctions meant for the right Dharma age, then the teachings and capacities of beings will fall into opposition, and human beings and Dharma will not be suited to each other. Accordingly, the four-part Vinaya states, when that which has not been prohibited is made into a prohibition, the Buddha's three illuminations are sundered. Codifying such arbitrary opinions is an offense. With the quotations from the sutras given above, the alignment of Dharma ages and beings has been completed. End quote. In conclusion, whenever we speak about ordained clergy in our Jodo Shinshu school or in other Japanese or non-Japanese Buddhist schools, we should remember that we refer to nominal monks and nuns of the last Dharma age, and we should never judge them according to the standards of the monks and nuns of the right Dharma age. All that was written by Master Saicho in his lamp for the last Dharma age was based on the words of Shakyamuni Buddha himself in the Mahayana Sutras, and approved by Honen Shonen and Shinran Shonen, who quoted almost the entire text in his Kagyo Shinsho. Thus, if anybody asks us, ordained clergy of the Jodo Shinshu Amidaji, who are we, or who we are, we should humbly say that we are monks and nuns of the last Dharma age. We are not virtuous monks like Shariputra, Ananda, and others who lived during the right Dharma age, but monks in name only, that is, monks who shave their heads and wear the robes and kesa of Nembutsu faith. We do read about the moral precepts, and we try our best to have a decent moral life, but this trying can no longer be called observance of precepts, and our failure in the moral life cannot be called breaking of precepts, as we are too spiritually sick to be even given such precepts. For us, the precepts are practically non-existent, not because we deny them, but because we cannot follow them or use them as a means to attain enlightenment. The only path we can follow is the Nembutsu of faith in Amida Buddha, and even that does not depend on our limited capacities. Our lives as monks and nuns are dedicated to the single goal of helping all beings entrust to Amida Buddha. We are focused on this day and night, although some of us also have wives and children. This is why we are not lay people, and although we are in the worldly life, we do not belong to it, as our aspiration is otherworldly. Question: what is the difference between priests and monks? Answer: the word priest does not exist in the classical Buddhist vocabulary, being a modern adaptation to explain the idea of married monks and nuns to people whom such a thing would be hard to understand due to their cultural background. For example, in Romania, Russia, or other countries in the southeast of Europe and the Balkans, it might be difficult to use the word monk because people here, the Orthodox Christian majority, are used to thinking that monks live in monasteries and only priests get married. On the contrary, in some countries with a Catholic majority, people might also not understand the idea of a priest, as in their case priests too are celibate. Recently a Dharma friend from Brazil told me the following, quote, priest or padre and nun, frere, are exclusive for Catholics. Monk, monge for male, monja for female are used for Buddhist clergy. It is the same reason why in English you have to use pastor instead of priest for Protestants. There is no such thing in Portuguese as a Buddhist priest, only a Buddhist monk, monge or monja, not married, no matter if married or not. End quote. So Jodo Shinshu clergy of Amidaji can rightfully call themselves monks and nuns based on the teachings presented in this article, which were approved by many masters of the past and the words of Shakyamuni Buddha himself. Only if you think that some people might not understand what you say, and you do not have time to explain in detail, you can use the word priest. I myself often used the word priest in the past, but I will also start to refer myself more as a monk of the last Dharma age, because this is what I really am. Namo Amida Bu. There are 16 important footnotes to the chapter or section entitled Monks and Nuns of the Last Dharma Age. Footnote 5 on page 7 states, during that time, monk ordination could be given with imperial permission and be taken away by imperial decree. However, this was an abnormal thing. and Shinran as well as Honen continued to wear his robes, which shows that he didn't really agree that the emperor, whom he also criticized for his decision, had the right to do such a thing. There were also many monks during that era who did not care to be officially recognized by the authorities and who roamed the countryside and did various practices. Footnote 6 on page 8 states, Buddhist clergy, except Jodo Shinshu, were not allowed to marry by law until 1872, and nowadays most of the monks in Japan from all schools are married and transfer their temples from father to son. Footnote 7 on page 9 states, Master Saiksho, or Denjio Daishi, who lived between 767 to 822 CE, was the founder of the Tendai school of Buddhism in Japan. Footnote 11 on page 12 states, the slander of the right Dharma mentioned in the primal vow also includes to deny the existence of other Buddhas and the authenticity of the Mahayana Sutras. See my detailed explanations of the primal vow in my book, Commentary on the Sutra on the Buddha of Infinite Life. Footnote 13 on page 14 states, the age when the Dharma will become extinct refers to the time after the last Dharma age when lifespan will decrease to 10 years due to constant war, famine, and plagues. Even during that time, the Nembutsu of faith will be effective in bringing one to liberation. After the age when the Dharma becomes extinct comes to an end, people will start to slowly wake up and change their ways until a new good time will appear, and Maitreya will come into this world as a successor to Shakyamuni. Footnote 16 on page 14 states, the 5 defilements are the 5 marks of decay of the world we live in. 1. The defilement of views, when incorrect, perverse thoughts and ideas are predominating. 2. The defilement of passions, when all kinds of transgressions are exalted. 3. The defilement of human condition, when people are usually dissatisfied and unhappy. 4. The defilement of lifespan, when the human lifespan as a whole decreases, according to the sutras, when it is less or close to 100 years. 5. The defilement of the world age, when war and natural disasters are rife. Footnote 18 on page 15 states, Master Saicho explained, quote, the first stage of sagehood that is attained is termed emancipation, end quote. Footnote 22 on page 19. According to Mahayana Buddhism, there are 2 types of bodhisattvas. 1. Bodhisattvas in aspiration who have made the vows of becoming Buddhas for themselves and all beings, but are still on the path, still in training, and are still unenlightened, that is, not Buddhas yet. Anyone who made the 4 bodhisattva vows may call himself or herself a bodhisattva in aspiration. Some bodhisattvas may be very much advanced and on various higher levels, even close to enlightenment, but as long as they have not reached perfect enlightenment, I also include them in this category. 2. Bodhisattvas who already attain Buddhahood, but who do not remain secluded in their enlightenment. These are in fact ancient Buddhas who manifest as bodhisattvas. In this category we find Avalokiteshvara, Mahasamantaprapta, Samantabhadra, Manjushri, Maitreya, and many others. Among those bodhisattvas who manifest in the last Dharma age, some might be in the high levels of the first category, while others in the second. For more detailed explanation of the bodhisattvas in the second category, please read section 2, The Qualities of Bodhisattvas in the Audience, from my book, Commentary on the Sutra on the Buddha of Infinite Life. Footnote 25 on page 20 states, a Pratyeka Buddha, or solitary realizer, is one who keeps his master's identity secret and prefers to stay in solitary places. It is said that, quote, fear at the thought of samsara, yearning for nirvana, little compassion, arrogance, secretive about their teachers, and enjoying solitude, a wise one should understand that these are the marks of the solitary realizer family. End quote. The Shravaka, or Shravaka vehicle, or in Pratyeka Buddha yana, are the two vehicles or yanas of the Hinayana, while the Bodhisattva yana is the Mahayana, which aims at attaining nirvana for all beings. Footnote 26 on page 21 states, and Arhat is the saint and the culmination of the Hinayana Buddhist teaching. He has overcome the outward manifestation of the afflictive emotions, but has not completely uprooted the psychic imprint. He is free from samsara, but has not attained perfect enlightenment. For this reason we say he did not discover the Buddha nature. Footnote 27 on pages 21 and 22 states, a Hinayana Shravaka or Hinayana Hira is the Buddhist disciple who fears samsara and wishes to achieve nirvana, but has little compassion. It is said, one who is afraid upon seeing the suffering of samsara and yearns to achieve nirvana, but has little interest in benefiting sentient beings. These are the three marks of the Hira family. End quote. These should not be confused with the Shravakas mentioned in the larger sutra, which refers to people who might have been Hinayana Shravakas in a previous existence before being born in the Pure Land, and who are now faithful enlightened disciples of Amida, Buddha, and hear the teaching directly from him. Footnote 33 on page 27 states, it was said by some doctors of those times that cow's liver contains medicine, which is why the Buddha used this metaphor. Footnote 35 on page 28 states, this fragment of the lamp for the last Dharma age appears in the collected works of Shinran, Shin Buddhism Translation Series, Jodo Shinshu Kyoto 1997, page 252, while the rest is from a different translation. Footnote 36 on page 28 states, this fragment of the lamp for the last Dharma age appears in the translation done by BDK, the candle of the latter Dharma, Mappo Tomio Ki by Saicho, BDK English Tripitaka, volume 107-3, translated from the Japanese by Robert Rhodes, the Martyrs Center for Buddhist Translation and Research, 1994. I use this variant because the expression, quote, at these times monks who break the precepts are gradually tolerated and become the fields of merit of the people of the world, end quote. In BDK edition sounds better than, quote, in this period the breaking of precepts gradually comes to be permitted and becomes the field of merits for the world, end quote, as in the Hongwanji edition. Footnote 38 on page 30. This fragment is a combination of the translation done by Hongwanji and the collected works of Shinran, Shin Buddhism Translation Series, Shinshu Hongwanji-ka, Kyoto 1997, page 251, and the translation done by BDK and the BDK English Tripitaka, volume 107-3. Faith, or Shinjin, once received, cannot be lost. Footnote 43 on page 33 states, we should bow to all monks and nuns of the last Dharma age, and treat them like Shariputra and Ananda, except those who deny the existence of Amida Buddha and his Pure Land, or the authenticity of the Mahayana Sutras. The ordination, or tokudo ceremony, for becoming a monk or nun of Amidaji branch of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. Monks and nuns of Amidaji can ordain others only after 5 years have passed since their own ordination. Until then, they can teach, found a temple or dojo, offer kishiki, lay refuge, or do any other ceremonies. Ordination for men or women can be given by either monks or nuns without any discrimination. Any monk or nun of at least 5 years since his or her ordination can ordain others irrespective of their sex. Here is the description of a tokudo ceremony at Amidaji. The tokudo candidate will have his head shaved, with the exception of a small piece of hair that will be cut during the ceremony by the monk or nun who ordains him. If possible, he will be dressed all in white. White robes or white shirt, white pants and white socks can be used. These white clothes represent the honesty and sincerity of the candidate for monkhood, as well as the death of his previous self. The person who receives ordination dies as a lay person and is reborn as a monk or nun, dedicated to the cause of helping all beings entrust to Amida Buddha. Every participant at the ordination ceremony, including the teacher officiant, enter the Amidodo before the tokudo candidate, who for the moment is waiting at the entrance. They sit on the ground with the exception of the teacher, who stands before the altar. A person is given the role of striking the bell. He sits on the left side of the hall, having the teacher on the right side and focusing his attention at the center of the hall, the entrance, the officiant teacher, and the tokudo candidate. All the items to be given to the new monk or nun are placed by the teacher on the altar to be blessed by Amida Buddha. After the teacher makes oshiko and bows, the bell is struck twice and everybody, including the tokudo candidate in the door, chants the three invitations. Doshi, Bu Jo Mi Da Nyao Rai Nyao O Jo. We respectfully call upon Amida Buddha to enter this place of practice. Ruan, San Gei Raiku, as we joyfully scatter flowers of welcome. Doshi, Bu Jo Shaka Nyao Rai Nyao Do Jo. We respectfully call upon Shakyamuni Buddha to enter this place of practice. Ruan, San Gei Raiko, as we joyfully scatter flowers of welcome. Doshi, Bu Jo Jippo Nyao Rai Nyao Dojo. We respectfully call upon all Buddhas from the 10 directions. Duan, San Gei Raiko, as we joyfully scatter flowers of welcome. Then the teacher goes in on the left side of the altar and is standing there with hands in gasho. The bell is struck 8 times. The tokudo candidate starts saying Nembutsu in a loud voice and enters the hall with the left foot near the doorframe and goes in the direction of the altar. He keeps repeating Nembutsu all the time. When he reaches the altar, he makes oshiko, and then he prostrates fully to the ground 3 times. Then he bows from standing position towards his teacher, who stands in the left of Amida Buddha's image. The teacher bows back. The bell is struck once, and they both take a seat facing each other, the teacher having the altar in the back. The tokudo candidate keeps his hands in gasho during the entire ceremony. The bell is struck again once, and the officiant monk and tokudo candidates say together the 3 refuges in a loud, powerful, and determined voice. Officiant, Namo Keibu, I take refuge in the Buddha. Tokudo candidates, Namo Keibu, I take refuge in the Buddha. Officiant, Namo Kieho, I take refuge in the Dharma. Tokudo candidates, Namo Kieho, I take refuge in the Dharma. Officiant, Namo Kieso, I take refuge in the Sangha. Tokudo candidates, Namo Kieso, I take refuge in the Sangha. Officiant, Namo Keibu, I take refuge in the Buddha. Tokudo candidates, Namo Kiebu, I take refuge in the Buddha. Officiant, Namo Kieho, I take refuge in the Dharma. Tokudo candidates, Namo Kieho, I take refuge in the Dharma. Officiant, Namo Kieso, I take refuge in the Sangha. Tokudo candidates, Namo Kieso, I take refuge in the Sangha. Officiant, Namo Kiebu, I take refuge in the Buddha. Tokudo candidates, Namo Kiebu, I take refuge in the Buddha. Officiant, Namo Kieho, I take refuge in the Dharma. Tokudo candidates, Namo Kieho, I take refuge in the Dharma. Officiant, Namo Kieso, I take refuge in the Sangha. Tokudo candidates, Namo Kieso, I take refuge in the Sangha. Then everybody chants together Nembutsu in the following manner. Doshi, Namo Amida Bu, I take refuge in homage to Amida Buddha. Duan, Namo Amida Bu, 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 Namo Amida Bu. The teacher officiant reads in a loud declamatory voice the 8 precepts of faith, the rules of conduct implied in the Raigamon, and the 18 Dharma precepts for monks and nuns of Amidaji. Then he asks the candidate 3 times, quote, do you vow to keep all these precepts of the faith, the rules of conduct, and Dharma precepts for the duration of your present life, never deviating from them, but always keeping them in mind for the sake of saving sentient beings." End quote. Each time the candidate must answer, quote, "Yes, I do," end quote, with a strong and determined voice. At the end of this fragment, the person responsible for the bell strikes it once, and the candidate approaches the teacher and bows his head towards him, while somebody brings a shaving instrument, a towel, and a little vase with water. At each movement with the blade, the teacher says, "The first cut is to have faith in Amida Buddha and help all beings entrust to him. The second cut is to say the name of Amida Buddha and help all beings say his name. The third cut is to wish to be born in the pure land of Amida Buddha and help all beings to be born there." The above words are repeated 3 times. When he finishes, the bell is struck once, and the candidate levels his head while keeping his hands in gasho. The towel, vase of water, and shaving instruments are removed. The bell is again struck once, and somebody goes to the altar, bows, takes all the items for the new monk and nun, bows again, and offers them to the sitting teacher. He gives them to the candidate while bowing towards him and saying Nembutsu. The candidate receives them with both hands, bows and says Nembutsu. The items that one receives at his or her ordination are a Nenju, 1 travelling robe, 1 ceremonial robe, 1 kesa, a bowl, and orioko set for eating, and a zagu or bowing mat. The robes and kesa represent the transmission of Amida Dharma, the zagu, openness to teach everybody, the protection of Amida, all Buddhas, masters and deities converted to Buddhism. The Nenju represents faith and the Nembutsu of faith. The bowl and orioki set means eating for the path. The fact that these are first placed on the altar and then brought from there, signifying that the teacher is only a transmitter, not a creator of the teaching or a giver of blessings, and that everything good and useful on the path has the origin in Amida Buddha himself. Then the newly ordained person is helped to dress in the robes and kesa by somebody or by the teacher if there is nobody else who can do that. After he is fully dressed, the new monk or nun will bow towards the altar, sit on his zagu, place his bowl, the travelling robe, and his old Nenju in front of him on the same zagu, bow towards the altar again while saying Nembutsu, then bows towards his teacher who bows back to him. Then the teacher turns towards the altar and a new chanting of Nembutsu begins, followed by the echo. Doshi, Namo Amida Bu. I take refuge in, homage to Amida Buddha. Dön, Namo Amida Bu, 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 Namo Amida Bu. Doshi, Ganni Shiku Duko. May the merits of the primal vow of Amida, Dön, Bayo Udo Usi Isi I, be received equally by all beings. Do Ho Tsubode Ishini, may all develop bodhicitta. Ojuo Wa Nrakoku, and may they be born in the land of peace and bliss. The ceremony ends with the officiant teacher bowing towards the new monk and the audience while they also bow back to him. Then a Dharma talk is given by the teacher, and the new monk or nun is invited to hold his first Dharma discourse in front of the Sangha. Important note, each time the monk or nun buys new travelling robes, even working clothes that he uses in the temple, ceremonial robes, kesha, nenju, zagu, a bowl, and eating instruments, or he receives them as donations, he should always offer them to Amida Buddha for blessings before wearing or using them. He should always regard them as Dharma instruments blessed by the Buddha and belonging to the Buddha that were offered to him for the benefit of all beings. Donors should also think that they are only passing the Buddha's gift to the monks and nuns. There are 13 important footnotes in the section or chapter entitled The Ordination Tokudo Ceremony for Becoming a Monk or Nun of Amidaji branch of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. Footnote 44 refers to the sentence, monks and nuns of Amidaji can ordain others only after 5 years have passed since their own ordination. And this footnote states, Exceptions from this rule are applied only in cases of emergency. Footnote 45 refers to the sentence, any monk or nun of at least 5 years since his or her ordination can ordain others irrespective of their sex. And it states, the conditions for ordination are already presented in the constitution of Amidaji, so I will not mention them again in this book. Footnote 46 refers to the tokudo candidate will have his head shaved, and it states, he will be shaved outside Amidaji Hall of Amida, or in a separate room. Footnote 47 refers to the sentence, these white clothes represent the honesty and sincerity of the candidate for monkhood, as well as the death of his previous self. And it states, white is a funeral color. Footnote 48 refers to Sambujo. The 3 invitations are addressed to Amida, Shakyamuni, and all Buddhas in the 10 directions. The place of practice, dojo, where we invite these honored guests, can be a temple, one's own house, or any place where people meet to say Nembutsu and listen to Amida Dharma. Footnote 49 refers to Sangay Raiku and states, when saying Sangay Raiku, the priest and participants may scatter petals or roses or any flower in the direction of the altar, or they can make the mudra of offering flowers. Footnote 50 states, this gesture signifies humbleness. Footnote 51 refers to Namo Amida Bu. This is the name of Amida Buddha with 6 characters. You can prolong the recitation of this name as much as you like. Footnote 52 states, the robes that one receives at ordination can be either Chinese or Japanese style, depending on the person and circumstance. Footnote 53 states, the bowl will be placed on top of the travelling robe, while his old Nenju will be placed behind the bowl. Footnote 54 refers to echo. This part is called echo, E-K-O, or merit transference. In the practices based on personal power, the practitioner earns virtues, which he transfers for his own enlightenment. But in the case of other power or Pure Land way, the transference of merits takes place from Amida Buddha to those who entrust to him. This transference of merit, echo, carries the follower to the Pure Land, where he attains nirvana or perfect enlightenment. Shinran Shonin says in a hymn, quote, when sentient beings of this evil world of the 5 defilements entrust themselves to the selected primal vow, virtues indescribable, inexplicable, and inconceivable fill those practitioners. End quote. The merit transference from Amida to the practitioner has 2 aspects. 1. The merit transference of going forth, oso echo, and 2. The merit transference of returning to this world, genso echo. The first refers to the fact that through Amida's transference of merit we go to his Pure Land where we become Buddhas, while the second one means that after we become Buddhas in the Pure Land, by sharing the same enlightenment as Amida, we return to the various samsaric realms and universes to save all beings. Footnote 55 refers to bodhicitta or bodhi mind, and it is the aspiration to attain Buddhahood for oneself and all beings. This is fulfilled in the awakening of faith, Shinjin, in the primal vow of Amida Buddha. Master Shantao said, quote, awake your bodhi mind to Amida's compassion, end quote. That is, aspire to your and other beings' liberation by relying on the compassion of Amida, his primal vow. So, the awakening of the bodhi mind, the obligatory condition in Mahayana for attaining the supreme enlightenment, appears in Jodo Shinshu in the form of the entrusting heart or Shinjin. Shinran Shonin said, quote, the mind aspiring to become Buddha is the mind seeking to save sentient beings. the mind that seeks to save sentient beings, is true faith endowed by Amida's compassion. End quote. Hymns on the Patriarchs, 18. The 13th and final important footnote to this section or chapter, footnote number 56, states, "This attitude is based on the following passage from Thus I Have Heard from Renyo Shonin, in which there is a recorded saying of Zenshu, a close disciple of Renyo Shonin. Zenshu said, quote, 'When I make offerings to the Shonin, I do this as if they were my own. How shameful!' When asked why, he said, 'They are the things given by the Buddha, but I offer them to the Shonin as if they were my own gift. My role is only to pass the Buddha's gift over to the Shonin. How shameful I am to make these offerings as if they were my own.'" End quote. This footnote refers to the sentence, "Donors should also think that they are only passing the Buddha's gift to the monks and nuns." The Dharma precepts for monks and nuns of Amidaji. Quote, "Go forth, monks, for the happiness of the many, out of compassion for the world. There are beings whose eyes have little dust on them, who will perish if they do not hear the teaching. But if they hear the teaching, they will gain liberation." End quote. From the Mahavagga Vinaya Pitaka. Monks and nuns of Amidaji are not required to lead a perfect moral life, although they should try their very best. As this is impossible in the last Dharma age for reasons already explained in the first chapter. But they must have faith in Amida Buddha and help others entrust to him. Thus they shall follow the 8 precepts of faith, the rules implied in the Raigamon, and the 18 Dharma precepts, which are not moral precepts, but strictly related to their Dharma activities. The 8 precepts of faith for all members of Amidaji. 1. A true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas shall not himself deny or encourage others to deny the actual literal existence of Amida Buddha and his Pure Land. He must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of denying the existence of Amida Buddha and his Pure Land. As a true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas, he must have devotion and faith in Amida Buddha, always helping sentient beings to entrust to him and aspire to be born in his Pure Land. 2. A true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas shall not himself deny or encourage others to deny the story of Amida Buddha as told by Shakyamuni in the larger sutra and as presented in the Amida Dharma book. He must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of denying it. As a true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas, he must accept in faith the larger sutra and the story of Amida Buddha as told by Shakyamuni there, always helping sentient beings to do the same. 3. A true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas shall not himself deny or encourage others to deny the importance of the wish to be born in the Pure Land for the attainment of perfect enlightenment. He must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of stopping sentient beings from wishing to be born in the Pure Land for the attainment of perfect enlightenment. As a true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas, he must always encourage sentient beings to wish to be born in the Pure Land for the attainment of perfect enlightenment. 4. A true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas shall not himself deny or encourage others to deny that they are persons of deep karmic limitations, unable to attain Buddhahood through their own power, and that only Amida Buddha can save them through his vow power. He must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of denying salvation from samsara through Amida's power. As a true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas, he must always encourage sentient beings to recognize themselves as persons of deep karmic limitations, incapable of attaining Buddhahood through their own power, and to accept that only Amida Buddha can save them through his vow power, without asking anything from them. 5. A true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas shall not himself doubt or cause others to doubt the primal vow and birth in the Pure Land. He must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of doubting the primal vow of Amida Buddha and birth in the Pure Land. As a true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas, he must always encourage sentient beings to accept the primal vow of Amida without any doubt and be sure of their birth in the Pure Land. 6. A true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas shall not himself deny or encourage others to deny that birth in the Pure Land takes place after death. He must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of denying that birth in the Pure Land takes place after death. As a true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas, he must always encourage sentient beings to accept that birth in the Pure Land takes place after death. 7. A true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas shall not himself abandon or encourage others to abandon the saying of Amida Buddha's name, the Nembutsu. He must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of abandoning the saying of the name of Amida Buddha. As a true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas, he must always encourage sentient beings to say the name of Amida. 8. A true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas shall not himself mix or encourage others to mix Nembutsu and devotion towards Amida Buddha with other faiths and practices from inside or outside of the Buddha Dharma. He must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of mixing Nembutsu and devotion towards Amida Buddha with other faiths and practices from inside or outside of the Buddha Dharma. As a true disciple of Amida and all Buddhas, he must always encourage sentient beings to exclusively say the Nembutsu and devote themselves entirely to Amida Buddha. The rules implied in the Raigamun: respect other Buddhist schools and do not denigrate their teachings or followers. Do not belittle other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Do not denigrate the Kami, gods of Shintoism. Do not put on airs of a high spiritual person. Be humble. Do not impose our faith on people of various religions or Buddhist schools. Be careful when you talk about Jodo Shinshu teaching with people who are not karmically mature and not open to understanding and receiving it. Do not impose it on them. In general, speak only when it is truly necessary and at the right time. Do not be proud and do not become noisy, especially in the public, with your convictions and faith in Jodo Shinshu. Be discreet, act normally, and enjoy your faith in silence and humbleness. Do not denigrate or slight government and local authorities because you have faith and they do not. Meet your public obligations and duties in full without fail. Take the laws of the state as your outer aspect. Store other power faith deep in your hearts and take the principles of humanity and justice as essential. The 18 Dharma precepts for monks and nuns. 1. Monks and nuns shall be examples of faith in Amida Buddha and dedicate their lives to help others entrust to him. 2. Monks and nuns shall deeply contemplate the teaching and be able to explain it to others. 3. Monks and nuns shall have no day without at least one religious service and reading a Dharma text. 4. Monks and nuns shall always be available to teach people who are in a learning mood. 5. Monks and nuns shall not sit on high chairs when teaching the Dharma to others or when performing religious ceremonies. 6. Monks and nuns shall always bow back when others, monks or lay, are bowing to them. 7. Monks and nuns shall not demand any form of payment for their Dharma activities, teaching and ceremonies. If they sell any book or Dharma text, they must provide free copies for those who cannot afford it or do not want to buy. The copy can be in any form depending on the situation. Monks and nuns shall not use their position and status to obtain personal benefits of any kind. They may ask for help if needed, but they shall not aim for a life of luxury. 9. Monks and nuns shall never slander Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Sutras, and genuine Buddhist schools, nor encourage people to do so. Masters, teachers, monks, nuns, or lay members of other Buddhist schools should not be criticized unless they go against the general Buddhist teaching or they attack Jodo Shinshu. 10. Monks and nuns shall make no gesture of worship towards non-Buddhist altars and non-Buddhist religious figures. They shall not actively participate in the rituals or ceremonies of non-Buddhist religions. Except for exchanging courtesy and developing good relations, they shall not enter a non-Buddhist temple or praying house. 11. Monks and nuns shall not entrust, pray to, or worship any non-Buddhist deity or spirit. They must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of entrusting, praying, or worshipping any non-Buddhist deity. 11. Monks and nuns shall not entrust, pray to, or worship any non-Buddhist deity or spirit. They must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of entrusting, praying, or worshipping any non-Buddhist deity. 12. Monks and nuns shall never teach non-Buddhist practices or teachings. They shall not mix the Buddhist teaching with elements of other religions and teachings. They must not follow and promote any views that go against the Buddhist teaching. They shall regard the Buddhist teaching as supreme among all religions and teachings of the world, and in such a way they should present it to other beings. They shall encourage all beings to follow the Buddha Dharma exclusively, to have faith in Amida Buddha, say his name, and wish to be born in his pure land. 13. Monks and nuns shall use their temples and centers exclusively for Dharma activities and teachings. 14. Monks and nuns shall assume the twofold duty of teaching the correct Dharma and counteract wrong views. They shall never sacrifice their Dharma mission for the sake of not offending the proponents of worldly ideologies, wrong views, and heresies of their time. The Dharmic truths must be proclaimed, no matter who gets upset. 15. Monks and nuns shall not be alcoholics or drug addicts. They shall not consume any drugs at all, not even in small doses. They shall always keep their minds sharp and clear for the benefit of all sentient beings. Alcohol consumption is strictly forbidden in the temples and dojos, or during a retreat. 16. Monks and nuns shall not cause divisions inside the Sangha on the basis of egocentric reasons. They shall never put their personal views and desires above the spiritual benefit of the Sangha. 17. Monks and nuns shall shave their head and beard regularly, once in 3 or 8 days maximum. The only exceptions when monks and nuns are allowed to grow hair and beard are 1. If they have a grave illness and the shaving of the head would cause blood to flow and excruciating pain. 2. If their lives are in danger and they need to hide their identity as monks and nuns. 3. If they are in a place where they honestly cannot find any razors. 18. Monks and nuns shall wear no jewelry on their body or makeup when they wear the robes and kesa. The 8 precepts of faith, the rules implied in the Raigamon, and the 18 Dharma precepts for monks and nuns should be recited daily. They should also be kept in an honorable place so that they can always be seen. The order of recitation for the precepts and rules should be as follows. 1. Aspiration. For however long I remain in this delusory body, I will be devoted to Amida Dharma from the very core of my mind, and whatever I do, say, or think will be directed to help all beings receive faith in Amida Buddha. I will travel on the path of liberation, and riding the horse of faith and true teaching, I will lead all beings to birth in the Pure Land. Recitation of the 8 precepts of faith. 3. Recitation of the rules implied in the Raigamon. 4. Recitation of the 18 Dharma precepts for monks and nuns. There are 8 important footnotes to the chapter or section entitled The Dharma Precepts for Monks and Nuns of Amidaji. Footnote 57 states, the 8 precepts of faith and the rules implied in the Raigamon are for all members of Amidaji. Footnote 58 refers to the following rule implied in the Raigamon. Respect other Buddhist schools and do not denigrate their teachings or followers. Renyo said in one of his many letters referring to this aspect, quote, within our tradition there must be no slandering of other teachings and sects, as the teachings were all given by Shakyamuni during his lifetime. They should be fruitful if they are practiced just as they were expounded. In this last Dharma age, however, people like ourselves are not equal to the teachings of the various sects of the path of sages. Therefore, we simply do not rely on them or entrust ourselves to them. End quote. Footnote 59 refers to the following rule implied in the Raigamon. Do not denigrate the kami, that is, gods of Shintoism. Footnote 59 states, we do not rely on the kami, but this does not mean that we denigrate them. Footnote 60 refers to the following rule implied in the Raigamon. Do not impose our faith on people of various religions or Buddhist schools. Footnote 60 states, this does not mean we should not do missionary work, but that we should not force people to convert to Jodo Shinshu. Footnote 61 refers to the following rule implied in the Raigamon. Take the laws of the state as your outer aspect. Footnote 61 states, act accordingly with the laws of the state you live in. Of course, this does not imply to laws that are inhumane, criminal, or go against the Buddhist teaching and morality. Footnote 62 refers to the following rule implied in the Raigamon. Store other power faith deep in your hearts and take the principles of humanity and justice as essential. Footnote 62 states, try to be compassionate and treat all people equally, no matter their differences. Footnote 63 refers to number 15 of the 18 Dharma precepts for monks and nuns. Monks and nuns shall not be alcoholics or drug addicts. Footnote 63 states, this is not a requirement for moral reasons, but because alcoholics and drug addicts are not able to do their duty as well as monks and nuns. The 8th footnote refers to precept 15 of the 18 Dharma precepts for monks and nuns. They shall not consume any drugs at all, not even small doses. They shall always keep their minds sharp and clear for the benefit of all sentient beings. Alcohol consumption is strictly forbidden in the temples and dojos or during retreat. The 8th and final important footnote states, except when they have to take it for medicinal reasons. The outward signs of monks and nuns. The outward signs of monks and nuns are the shaved head. It represents a dedication towards the path for the benefit of all beings. The robes and kesa. They represent the transmission of Amida Dharma. The zagu, sitting and bowing mat. It represents openness to teach everybody the protection of Amida, all Buddhas, masters and deities converted to Buddhism. The Nenju, it represents faith and the Nembutsu of faith. The bowl and ori oki set, it represents the action of eating for the path. This will be explained in detail in the following pages. The meaning of shaving the head. When we arrange our hair in a certain fashion, it is like we say to the world, look at me, I am somebody, I am this or that. Our hairstyle represents our personality. However, when we shave our head, we say, I am nobody, no definition. For Jodo Shinshu monks and nuns, shaving also means to not play smart in Dharma matters. It is like refusing to put ourselves and our own opinions higher than Amida Dharma. It is an act of humbleness towards the three treasures and all beings. Shaving of the head is usually associated with giving up the past and with not having fantasies for the future, because what future can we have in samsara? It shows the understanding that everything is a delusion, not worthy of clinging to it, and that Nembutsu alone is true and real. It means to be aware of impermanence and the urgency to follow the Dharma as if this was the last day and hour of our life. To shave the head and wear the kesa of Nembutsu faith are the highest dimension of life. It means living in the Dharma, remembering the Dharma, returning home to the Dharma. It is like a renewal of our ordination. Every time you shave, you must bow, say Nembutsu, and repeat the words from the ordination. The first cut is to have faith in Amida Buddha and help all beings entrust to him. The second cut is to say the name of Amida Buddha and help all beings say his name. The third cut is to wish to be born in the pure land of Amida Buddha and help all beings to be born there. Quote, receive faith for yourself and help others receive it, end quote, said Shinran Shonin. This is the only real thing in our lives, anything else being an illusion and a waste of time. When you shave, you remember that you must not put your personal opinions and your ego above Amida Dharma, that is, to transmit Amida Dharma as it was taught by Shakyamuni and the masters of our lineage. By shaving your head, you erase any trace of wrong views and personal opinions from your Dharma mission. You put the Dharma higher than your so-called wisdom. Because we are not virtuous monks and nuns, and we cannot attain Buddhahood in this present life, we don't interpret the shaving of the head to mean the cutting away of blind passions like in other traditions, but as the abandonment of any practice based on self-power. Instead of cutting our blind passions, we renounce any false hope and illusion that we can attain nirvana through our own efforts. By shaving our heads, we abandon our bad karma and the so-called good karma into the hands of Amida Buddha, and we let ourselves to be carried by him to his pure land. Shaving also means total dedication to our mission, and that nothing will stand between us and our duty, not even our personal attachments or worldly circumstances. Wife or husband, children, friends, happiness or sorrow, wealth or poverty, etc. will count to nothing when it comes to the practice of the Dharma, teaching and helping sentient beings clear their doubts and receive faith. We have absolutely no reason and justification as monks or nuns for not doing our duty once we shaved our head and start to wear the robes and kesa of Nembutsu faith. All worldly matters will slide away from your shaven head when somebody asks you a Dharma question. You are not allowed to turn away from any sentient being, regardless of whether he is a human, God, spirit, etc., once he sincerely and honestly asks you something in relation with faith. Your life and death belong to Amida Dharma and to nothing else. Any worldly responsibility comes second to Amida Dharma and will always be postponed if necessary. Men or women who become monks and nuns shave their heads regularly, once in 3 days or more often, and at 8 days maximum. None should ever complain about shaving of the head. No exceptions should be made for women or men. Those who are not able to sacrifice their hair or beard might stumble at the first difficulty. A monk or nun should always try to be simple in appearance, with their heads and face shaved all the time, even when they are not wearing their robes due to various circumstances. The only exceptions when monks and nuns are allowed to grow hair and beard are: 1. If they have a grave illness and the shaving of the head would cause blood to flow and excruciating pain. 2. If their lives are in danger and they need to hide their identity as monks and nuns. 3. If they are in a place where they honestly cannot find any razors. I especially mentioned the word honestly because they should make every effort to equip themselves with the necessary instruments for shaving and not be careless in this matter. Except for these 3 situations, monks and nuns must shave their head, or else they will disrobe and return to lay status or not be recognized as ordained members of Amidaji. People who live their lives in special circumstances and under oath, like the military for example, are required to wear special uniforms and have a specific outlook. This is because such discipline educates their minds and mentally prepares them for duty and even sacrifice. They also need to prove that they are ready to abandon everything for their cause. In such matters, armed forces, as well as monks and nuns, are very similar, as they are supposed to have more aspiration and dedication than civilians or lay people. The robes and kesa of Nembutsu faith. Shaving of the head and wearing the robes and kesa are important signs of monks and nuns. The kesa is that piece of cloth which is worn over the robes and represents the transmission of the teaching from Shakyamuni Buddha to the monk or nun, no matter if they are virtuous vessels or not. You should wear the robes and kesa as much as possible, and even all the time if the circumstances are favorable. Treat them with utmost respect, as they are the clothes of enlightenment and Dharma transmission. They belong to the Buddhas, and were only loaned to you for the duration of your present life in human form. In all the worlds of the 10 directions, even in the realms of the gods, there are no superior clothes than the robes and kesa of Buddhist monks and nuns. The poorest and ragged robes and kesas deserve the respect and veneration of gods and men. At your home, place them above all other clothes, and if possible, put them in a special place dedicated only to them. The robes and kesa will never be thrown away if they break, but stored in a respected place. They can also be reused or patched, but I repeat, never to be thrown away or used like any rag. If you need to patch your robes and kesa, then say Nembutsu every time the needle enters the material, and if you use a sewing machine, say Nembutsu constantly during the entire process. The same should be done if you intend to make your own robes and kesa. The hook which holds the kesa represents the salvation offered by Amida Buddha, and the circle represents faith. This means that the transmission of Amida Dharma represented by the kesa is rooted in faith, as only those who have faith can help others receive faith. I like to call that hook Amida's finger, with whom he holds us firmly while crossing the ocean of samsaric existence. When you wear the robes and kesa, you are dead, a dead man walking. You are dead for yourself and very much alive for the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, as well as for all sentient beings, humans or non-humans, who need help on the Nembutsu path. Your existence as a person with shaven head and wearing the robes and kesa is focused on Amida Buddha and how to bring others to Amida. Your robes and kesa are the coffin of any self-power arrogance, and your shaven head is a sign that you consider yourself a nobody in spiritual matters. Amida saves you as you are, and you allow him to use you as an instrument to save others. Thus you become like an empty bamboo on which Amida sings, a channel for him to use, although you continue to be an ignorant fool of blind passions in your daily life, and although you may have a wife, husband, and children, you're always ready to answer the call of sincere beings who need guidance. For monks and nuns of the last Dharma age, the shaven head as well as their robes and kesa do not represent personal virtues, but their faith in Amida Buddha and total dedication to the mission of helping all sentient beings entrust to Amida. Our monks and nuns' ordination are not based on moral precepts, although we always try to improve our behavior towards our fellow sentient beings, but on faith. It is a faith ordination. Everything about it, from the ceremony itself, the shaven head, the robes, and the kesa, to how we eat and how we act in various circumstances, is totally related to faith in Amida Buddha and helping others receive faith in him. Our lives as monks and nuns should be totally dedicated to Amida Buddha and to bringing all beings to him. It is acceptable to fail at observing the moral precepts, although you should always try your best to have a moral behavior, or being a failure in your private life, because we are monks and nuns of the last Dharma age, when the spiritual capacities of beings are extremely low. But it is never acceptable to fail in matters of faith and helping others receive faith. Amidaji ordination requires total dedication from you in matters of faith. Just as monks and nuns during the right Dharma age were required to be virtuous, we, the monks and nuns of the last Dharma age, are asked to have faith in Amida Buddha and help all beings receive faith. The kesas are of various types, with 5 panels, 7 panels, 9 panels, and up to 25 panels. Monks and nuns who have just received their ordination can wear any kesa until 25 panels. Kesas with 25 panels are reserved to monks and nuns of at least 10 years of ordination, no matter what role they have within the Sangha. A monk can wear a kesa of 25 panels earlier than 10 years only with the approval of the Daisojo or the Sojo as a recognition of his dedication. Here is the story of the panels on the kesa of monks and nuns. Quote, once too, when the Blessed One was on his way home from Rajagaha to the southern hills, he said to the Venerable Ananda, Ananda, do you see the land of Magadha laid out in squares, laid out in strips, laid out with borders, laid out with crossed lines? Yes, Lord. Try to arrange robes for bhikkhu, monks like that, Ananda. End quote. This means that when wearing the kesa, we also remember the benevolence of the lay people who support us from their daily work and the duty we have towards them. Use the 5 and 7 stripe kesa for traveling or various training and activities within the temple. To teach humans and non-humans, use the kesa with 9 or more stripes to help them increase their devotion towards the Dharma. If we do ceremonies for the lay people in villages, towns, or official buildings, we also use the kesa with 9 or more stripes. When doing outdoor activities, we can wear the traditional Chinese skirt and pants with long socks or the traditional Japanese Buddhist working clothes. When sitting, walking in the temple, or traveling, we can use our everyday robe, called chuang guao in Chinese, with normal sleeves. Japanese fuho robe can also be used in such cases. When we are on the road, in the nature, or stop by anywhere, and we want to do a religious service, we can add a kesa on this everyday robe. However, if we do a service in a temple, we should change into the ceremonial robes, haikwin, with long sleeves, and wear a kesa. The haikwin can also be put on the everyday robe, or instead of the everyday robe, and then we add the kesa. These are actually the 3 robes of a monk or nun of Amidaji: traveling, ordinary robe, ceremonial robe, and kesa. Before wearing the kesa, we place it on the top of our head and we say the Nembutsu. This means that we place the Amida Dharma higher than our own personal opinions, and that we're only humble transmitters, not creators of such a precious liberating message. After taking it off and folding it, we hold it with our both hands and we raise it to the forehead before we place it in an honorable place for later use. When traveling, we keep it in a special bag together with a ceremonial robe, haikwin, and the zagu. While using the toilet, we take off our kesa and put it again afterwards. All the robes should be treated with respect. Not only the kesa, as they are the clothes of enlightenment and Dharma transmission. Actually, the kesa is also a robe, but we mention it separately because it is worn on the others. All of them are the robes of the Buddha and help you on the Nembutsu path. Monks and nuns of at least 10 years in ordination, no matter what their role in the Sangha, leaders Sojo of Kyodan country district, as well as the head of Amidaji, Daisojo, can wear a long, intertwined, hanging bead tassel on their 25-panel kesa. This hanging bead tassel is black for any monk and nun, brown for leaders of Kyodan Sojo, and gold or yellow, red or purple for the head of Amidaji. Lay people, too, should treat their kesa with utmost respect, touching their forehead with it before wearing it, store it in a respected place, and use it as much as possible during ceremonies at any time they want. Lay kesa, too, represents the Dharma transmission from the Buddha to the one who wears it. They can also eat while wearing the Nenju and kesa, so that they remember they eat for the Dharma. The bowing mat, zagu. The zagu, or bowing mat, drapes over the left wrist when the kesa is worn on Japanese-style ceremonial robes. If we wear Chinese ceremonial robes, haikuin, we hold it in front of us with both palms in the traditional Chinese style that is to be explained during training at the temple. The borders of the mat represent the Buddhas, the masters of our lineage, as well as deities converted to Buddhism, within whose help and protection we sit. It also signifies the opening of one's heart to teach all beings. The monk's bowl. Eat from the bowl and oryokai set as much as possible, and even all the time. Treat the bowl with utmost respect, as that is not a usual eating instrument, but the bowl of Buddha himself, which was loaned to you for the duration of your present life and human form. When eating, be totally focused on it. Say the words before and after meal with Josho and Nembutsu any time you eat from your bowl and or the oryoki set. Eat with your robes and kesa on, so that you remember you eat in order to follow the immediate Dharma for the benefit of all beings, and as a sign of respect for those who made that food available. In all the worlds of the 10 directions, even in the realms of the gods, there are no superior eating or drinking vases than the bowls of Buddhist monks and nuns. The poorest and simplest of all bowls deserve the respect and veneration of gods and men. At your home, place it above all other vases, and if possible, store it in a special place together with the robes and kesses. You can beg your food if necessary with your monk's bowl. The Buddha himself did that. The monks of his time did that, and you as a monk or nun of the last Dharma age can do that too. After receiving food or money in your monk's bowl, bow in gratitude to the donor and recite Nembutsu. If possible, give him the gift of Dharma. If you're invited to a lay person's home, read the words for meals and make a service and offer the gift of Dharma. The Nenju. Monks and nuns should treat their Nenju, mala or Buddhist rosary with deep respect. It should not be placed directly on the floor and must be carried all the time, whether they wear the robes and kesa or not. The Nenju should always be available for recitation or for doing Josho when it encircles the 2 folded palms. The Nenju represents faith in Amida Buddha and the Nembutsu of faith. It shows our devotion and connection with him. Wearing the Nenju means that you accept the existence of Amida Buddha and entrust to him. It is a constant reminder of faith in the Nembutsu of faith. So, wear it to express your faith in Amida through the saying of his name. Do not have frivolous or useless worldly talks when rubbing your Nenju. Better put it in your pocket when you engage in such discussions. Do not use your Nenju for worldly goals, but for remembering Amida's name and your connection with him. Of course, many false teachers and heretics also wear Nenjus, but you should bear the above significance in your mind and use it properly. Honen Shonen clearly connected the wearing of Nenju with faith in Amida as a real existing Buddha. Quote, when sentient beings constantly and reverently prostrate themselves before Amida Buddha with their body, Amida Buddha will see them. When they arouse themselves to practice and to always recite with their lips the name of Amida Buddha will hear them. When they constantly think of Amida Buddha in their hearts, Amida Buddha will think of them. In these 3 kinds of karmic acts, Amida Buddha and the sentient beings are not separate from each other. Hence, they are called intimate karmic relations. Therefore, if you hold a rosary or Nenju, Amida Buddha will see it. If you think in your mind to recite the Nembutsu, Amida Buddha will, in his mind, think of you. End quote. There are 7 important footnotes in these sections. Footnote 66 on page 62 states, for travelling you can use the ijibozo or kojojo with 5 stripes, the wagasa or the gojoja. Footnote 67 states, the ijibozo or kojojo can also be added if one wishes. That is, when one is travelling, in addition to the normal Japanese fuho robe. Footnote 68 states, the sleeves of the haikun are large to remind you to accept all beings without discrimination as long as they are sincere and open towards the Dharma. Footnote 69 states, nuns can add whatever underneath clothing article is necessary for their specific female needs. Footnote 70 states, the travelling robes can also be kept near it, and it refers to the sentence, when travelling we keep it in a special bag together with the ceremonial robe, haikun, and the zagu. Footnote 71 states, as far as I know, in ancient China and Japan, 2 inside robes were also called kesa and had 5 and 7 panels each, but later the stripes were kept only on the outside robe, which is the only one that is nowadays called a kesa. In India there were 2 robes, one like a skirt that covered the lower part of the body and the other on the upper part. In China, these 2 were united into one robe. Those who want more details about the development of monks' and nuns' robes in various countries should find specific studies on this topic. This book is not about that, and my knowledge is limited. Footnote 72 refers to the sentence, eat with your robes and kesa on, so that you remember you eat in order to follow the Amida Dharma for the benefit of all beings and as a sign of respect for those who made that food available. Footnote 72 states, or at least with a small kesa, ijiboso, or a simple robe, if you are alone at home. During a Nembutsu retreat, all participants will eat with their robes and kesa. This is the 7th and final footnote to this section. The Nembutsu session, retreat. Nembutsu retreats are organized regularly for monks and nuns, and their participation is mandatory. Lay people are also welcome to attend if they agree to follow the strictness of such a retreat. However, for them, the participation is not compulsory. For the entire duration of an Nembutsu retreat, the monks and nuns are considered monastics, and the temple becomes a monastery. Temples where retreats are offered uninterruptedly have a monastery status. If possible, Amidaji Sangha can try to keep monasteries where the monks and nuns will take turns in always providing a presence there, so that the retreat be held uninterruptedly. Here is the schedule of a Nembutsu retreat. A Nembutsu retreat starts at 5:30 p.m. on the first day and ends at 12 noon or midday on the last day. The general schedule of a normal day in a Nembutsu retreat at Amidaji Temple is as follows. 5:30 a.m. wake up. 6:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. religious service and breakfast. 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. silent work and or training in various Dharma activities. 12 midday or 12 noon to 2 p.m. religious service and lunch. 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. free time. 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. silent work and or training in various Dharma activities. 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. religious service and supper. 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. free time. 10 p.m. lights out. The members responsible for the kitchen and meals will wake up earlier to prepare the breakfast, which must be ready by until 6:30 a.m. when they will have to attend the morning religious service with the rest of the Sangha. After the morning service, they will go to the kitchen, warm the food and drink, and serve them in the main hall. They will use the silent work period of the day to prepare the next meal and organize their work in the kitchen. When each service of the day is over, participants will take their oryoki bowls and return to the main hall to be served the meal or eat in the kitchen, depending on the decision taken by the leader of the retreat. The meal will be served according to the traditional rules of Amidaji, oryoki style, and proper words will be said. All gestures and attitudes related to oryoki are taught orally. The words at meal times are the following. Before the meal. Amida Buddha, we receive this food with gratitude. May it help us on your path for the benefit of all beings. Namo Amida Bu. After the meal. Amida Buddha, may all beings who contributed to this meal and those in whose name was offered be healthy in body and mind. May all their obstacles be removed. Always receive what is beneficial to them. Have food, drink, clothes and shelter. Make indestructible connections with you. Entrust to you. Say your name, Namo Amida Bu, and wish to be born in your pure land. Namo Amida Bu. Eating will be done in complete silence while focusing on one's bowl. Meals in the Nembutsu retreat must be vegetarian. Meat, onion, garlic, alcohol, drugs are not allowed. The events of an ordinary day of a Nembutsu retreat are punctuated by various instruments, bells and gongs that will be taught during the retreat. Nobody is allowed to go out of the temple courtyard during the retreat without the permission of the person in charge. As I said previously, during the retreat, the temple becomes a monastery and all participants will live the life of secluded practitioners. Men and women will sleep separately, even if they are married. Sexual intercourse, as well as any flirting between participants, is forbidden. Those who break this rule, or any rule of the retreat, can be kicked out from the sesshin and receive the penalty decided by the leadership. At the retreat, all participants must focus exclusively on the practice, listening to the teaching and the various tasks given by those in charge. Silence must be kept while working. It is allowed to open one's mouth only if one says Nembutsu, ask something important related to the Dharma or to his task. Before starting any work at the temple and after finishing it, one must bow 3 times before Amida Buddha with the head touching the ground. The free time can be used for resting or taking care of one's belongings, washing, shaving, etc. The Nembutsu session is like a Dharma prison because any worldly preoccupations are abandoned. When you are in a Nembutsu session, you have no wife, no husband, no children, no personal interests, no nothing. You do not exist for yourself. You are there to train for your Dharma mission and nothing else. Thus, you have to let go of all thoughts that are unrelated to the session and focus exclusively on the Nembutsu, the teaching and the task at hand. The time dedicated to ordination training is also a Nembutsu retreat, during which one who had passed the doctrinal examination is taught everything about a monk or nun's life, including liturgies, robe and kesa wearing, eating attitude, etc. There are 5 important footnotes in the section entitled the Nembutsu session or retreat. The first important footnote refers to the sentence, lay people are also welcome to attend if they agree to follow the strictness of such a retreat. The footnote states, children cannot attend a retreat because their agitation might affect others. Also, people with mental illness cannot attend a retreat so that they do not put themselves and others in danger. The person in charge of the retreat has the right to inquire about the mental and physical health of the participants. The second important footnote refers to the sentence, the general schedule of a normal day in a Nembutsu retreat at Amidaji temple is as follows. The footnote states, the activities may be reorganized according to local circumstances or if there are specific training, instructions and teachings that must be given. Also, the time for various activities, services and rest can be changed if needed. However, the program should never become too lax. The third important footnote refers to the passage, before the meal, Amida Buddha, we receive this food with gratitude. May it help us on your path for the benefit of all beings. The footnote states, "This helps us remember that we eat out of necessity, as our bodies are vehicles for liberation." The fourth and fifth important footnotes in this section refer to the sentence, "Meals in the Nembutsu retreat must be vegetarian. Meat, onion, garlic, alcohol, drugs are not allowed." The fourth and fifth footnotes state, "Cheese, milk, and eggs are allowed, and smoking is allowed only during free time." Some advice to monks and nuns. Ordination is not a means to live in peace. Some people want to wear the robes and kesa of monks and nuns without actually being capable of assuming such duties and responsibilities. This is why ordinations should not be given easily until the teacher has come to know the student well for a few years, and the candidate proves that he or she has enough mental and spiritual maturity, as well as a deep understanding of the teaching of Amidaji branch of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. The decisions to ordain someone or give him the status of lay teacher should be based on very serious calculations, taking into consideration all the aspects of the candidate's personality. Errors may occur, and wrong people might be ordained because a teacher is also an ordinary person, and some candidates can perfectly hide their lack of faith or limitations under many layers of knowledge and momentary enthusiasm, which is why this matter should be considered carefully. Also, even if one has faith, he might not be the right person for this important duty due to various reasons related to his personality or way of life. I dislike it a lot when somebody is trying to force my hand to ordain him just because he wants that or he has an obsession with it, and especially when he proves to me many times that he does not understand the doctrinal foundation for ordination in Jodo Shinshu Amidaji. This was clearly explained based on many sutra passages in the chapter, "The Monks and Nuns of the Last Dharma Age." Unlike other schools, to become a monk or nun in Amidaji branch means that you have the right and responsibility to teach, which is why I cannot give this type of ordination to anybody just because he or she wants it. Years of knowing and trusting each other, as well as the passing of an examination, are very important. Publicly, everything might look wonderful, but privately, discussions and instructions are extremely important, and that is the place where a teacher can come to trust the candidate's sincerity or capacity to fulfill the duties of a monk or nun. A student in a public meeting might not be the same in a private discussion and examination, so do not judge my decisions or the decisions of other teachers in Amidaji to accept or reject somebody's application for ordination on the basis of one's public image in a few videos or public meetings. Many want to ordain so that they can live a peaceful life in their robes. However, this is not what ordination means in Jodo Shinshu Amidaji. Here we become monks and nuns in order to be active, even to the point of stress. Ordination is not a way to enjoy a peaceful life, but to put yourself in the service of others. An ordained person must be available anytime, 24/7. Whether you're with your wife and kids or alone in a mountain retreat enjoying silence, if an honest person calls you for a serious Dharma question, you interrupt your family life or your silence and you answer. I do not give a shit about the so-called peace of mind of ordained members. If they receive ordination, they must be available to teach, no matter if they are in peace or in trouble. Do not think that monkhood is a way to escape problems in life, as on the contrary, you might have even more problems by becoming a monk or nun. Be sure that you can assume this lifestyle, and once ordained, be ready to lose everything for the sake of the three treasures. Help your colleagues and blame no one. If you are rich, do not show off with your fortune, but live as modestly as possible, while also helping other fellow monks and nuns or lay students who have a difficult life. If you are poor, ask for help, but do not complain nor consider yourself wronged by destiny. If you are a celibate monk, do not disparage those who are married, thinking they do less than you. Also, if you are a married monk or nun, do not think there is something wrong with those who chose to stay celibate, as each has his own life and ways to help others. Do not sacrifice your Dharma duty for marriage, family, relatives, and friends, but also do not think that they are at fault for your laziness. It all depends on your dedication and how serious you take your ordination. Generally speaking, try to organize your personal life in such a way as to help you do your Dharma duty. Do not put a price on the holy Dharma. Do not teach nor make Buddhist ceremonies for money. Asking money or any worldly benefit for teaching and ceremonies means to treat the holy Dharma like any object one can buy from the market and throw out with the garbage when it is broken. It is a grave karmic sin to put a price on the priceless Dharma because it means to reduce the Dharma to a price. What difference is there then between selling underwear and selling Dharma? You also transform yourself into a walking commodity with a price and cease to be a light of the last Dharma age. I am always here if you need me. I cannot ask you to be a moral example, although we should all, monks or lay, try to lead a life in which we harm no one with our thoughts, actions, and speech. However, what I demand from you, and you do not have the right to fail on this matter, is to be an example of faith and to be available for sentient beings if they sincerely ask questions from you. Nobody, not even the Buddhas, expect you to be virtuous like the monks of the right Dharma age, such as Shariputra, Mahamoggallana, Ananda, etc. But they all demand that you are a reflection of Amida's light in this world. Shinran Shonen's urge to receive faith for yourself and help others receive faith is what reflecting Amida's light means. You cannot refuse any being, human or non-human, as long as they are in a learning mood and honestly ask Dharma instructions from you on how to entrust to Amida Buddha. You have no right to abandon them, no matter who they are, even if they are sick with a terrible disease and others turn away from them in fear and disgust. Thus you must go to places where others do not go if there are people with a sincere aspiration to learn the Amida Dharma. You must remember that the job of being a monk or nun is 24/7. There is absolutely no time when you are not a monk or nun, so you should always be available for teaching and instructing beings everywhere. Thus, even when you are with your family, if somebody sincerely asks you a Dharma question, you shall not postpone to answer it, as you never know what will happen next with that being. Life is uncertain, while death is certain, so strive consciously to help others solve their doubts and receive faith. Do not waste people's chances to listen to the Dharma because you wanted to have fun or you were too busy with your personal life. I do not want to hear from you that you cannot attend Nembutsu retreats because your wife or husband will get upset. I do not care about the mood of your wife, husband, or children, as long as they are not ill or dying, and they have enough to eat or a roof above their heads. You cannot use them as an excuse for not attending Nembutsu retreats or for not being available for others. Even if you are not a virtuous monk of the right Dharma age, you are not a lay too, so you are expected to be more dedicated than an ordinary lay person. If you shaved your head and received the kesa of Nembutsu faith, then you will do your duty, or else you disrobe and leave Amidaji. I understand human frailty and human incapacity to be good and virtuous, but I will never understand laziness in Dharma matters from a monk or nun. The motto of an ordained member of Amidaji is, quote, I am always here if you need me, end quote. You must learn to live your life according to this motto. You will fall, but you will move on. Yes, you will make mistakes and have moments when, due to your personal shortcomings and difficulties in life, you will not be able to do your duty well. There is no problem with falling as long as you struggle with Amida's help to rise again. Nobody has a smooth, clean road ahead, as a monk or nun. We are wretched beings, filled with blind passions, attachments, and many shortcomings, so it is normal to break down and fall from time to time. Still, we continue to walk or to crawl and do our duty. Take your time, relax when possible, fall or feel bad or alone or sad, but never give up. Worse than making a mistake or having a hard time is to abandon your duty. A soldier might get hurt during war and need some time to recuperate, but if he truly loves his country, he will resume his duty sooner or later. Be like a soldier and never give up, even if you fall from time to time. Be like a mirror. Educate your mind to be like a mirror. The mirror entirely reflects the person who stands in front of it, being filled with that person and not somebody else. But when that man goes away, the mirror does not reflect him anymore. In the same way, a Jodo Shinshu teacher must be fully focused on the people who ask for his guidance, and in harmony with the urge of Shinran Shonen, quote, help others receive Shinjin or faith, end quote, always using his skills to make them become open to Amida Buddha. However, if all members of his dojo or temple decide to leave and go to another teacher, he must let them go and not get attached to them. Acting in this way, he proves that he truly understands the law of karma, according to which quote, we come together when conditions bring us to meet and part when conditions separate us, end quote. And also that he understands the truth that he is only a messenger and a guide, not the giver and the creator of Shinjin or faith. Also, if they sincerely return to him, he should receive them like they have never gone away, thinking of nothing else but how to be useful to them. And if he truly acts and preaches, quote, in accord with the spontaneous working of the vow, end quote, his listeners will see this, if they have eyes to see, and will respect him as a good teacher and feel gratitude to him. This is what I understand by the words in Tanisho, quote, will awaken to the benevolence of the Buddha and of one's teachers, end quote. The proper way of receiving gifts. When you eat alone, put your robes in kesa, or at least the igiboso, kojojo, or wagasa, and say the words for meals. Why should you wear your kesa? Because the panels on the kesa reminds you of the work done by the lay people to support your Dharma activities. By wearing the kesa, or at least your robes, you show respect for their contribution, and you remember that eating is to sustain you on the path for the benefit of all beings. Whenever you receive something from somebody, you should always raise it to the forehead as a sign of deep respect, or at least bow, even if it's just an apple or a glass of water. Always think to those who help you and pray for them. You should know that not only human beings are helping you, but also invisible non-human beings like spirits and gods who are converted to Buddhism and act as Dharma protectors. You must think to their kindness and pray for them, just as you do for human beings, making offerings to Amida Buddha in their name. On meat and alcohol, no meat or alcohol shall ever enter the monk's bowl. So if you cannot be a vegetarian, you should at least not eat meat from your bowls, and not accept offerings of meat from the laity in it. Vegetarianism is recommended, but if there are monks and nuns who cannot abstain from meat, they should at least not eat it from their bowls, and not in a Nembutsu retreat or during an ordinary Nembutsu meeting with their followers in the temple or dojo. Monks and nuns who are not vegetarians can eat meat in their private homes, restaurants, and any places not dedicated to Dharma practice. These instructions are not based on any matter of purity or impurity, but to prevent some spirits who might wish to approach you at the sight of the holy robes and kesa from turning away in fear and disgust due to the presence of corpses. Cooked meat is actually the corpse of someone, or alcohol. Following these instructions is also showing respect towards the three treasures in all beings. Total abstention from alcohol is recommended, but if monks and nuns cannot do that, then at least they should not drink alcohol while teaching. Also, they are not allowed to be alcoholics because that will damage their capacity to think clearly and act in the benefit of others. Drinking alcohol in the temple and dojo or while in a retreat is strictly forbidden. Even if monks and nuns cannot abstain from meat and alcohol, they shall admit that Shakyamuni Buddha advocated the abstention from them in the Mahayana Sutras. They shall never try to deny or modify the Dharma and various moral precepts because they are not capable of following them. Being saved as we are does not mean that Amida and other Buddhas agree with our decadent lifestyle. Generally speaking, take to heart all the general instructions presented in the books of Amidaji and all of the rules of behavior found there, not only the 18 Dharma precepts for monks and nuns, and be an example for all in following them. People shall look at you and see the ideal Jodo Shinshu follower in all aspects: faith, helping others receive faith, dedication, good behavior in the Sangha, etc. On bowing back and not sitting on high places. During my travels, I saw many monks in other traditions not bowing back when lay people bowed to them. I do not wish to see such a behavior at Amidaji, and so I ask that monks, nuns, or lay teachers always bow back when anybody bows to them. We are not enlightened beings, gurus, and not even advanced practitioners. Anything good and useful that we transmit to others is due to Amida Buddha's influence and guidance. Shinjin or faith is not different in a monk or a lay and a monk or teacher. Cannot give Shinjin, as that is exclusively Amida's gift. Teachers, whether lay or ordained, should be treated with great respect, but they shall never be venerated like the gurus or masters in other traditions based on self-power. Bowing back shows humbleness and a lack of arrogance, and is the incarnation of Shinran's words that, quote, within the four seas, those who share the same faith are all brothers, end quote, and, quote, for myself, I do not have even a single disciple, for if I brought people to say the Nembutsu through my own efforts, then they might be my disciples. But it is indeed preposterous to call persons my disciples when they say the Nembutsu having received the working of Amida. End quote. This is the same reason why lay teachers, monks and nuns of Amidaji should not sit on high places when teaching the Dharma. A small platform can be used for technical reasons, but not high Dharma chairs like in other traditions based on self-power. We remain ordinary people all our lives, and we should not assume the risk of becoming arrogant when we teach the simple, faith-orientated Dharma. On giving blessings. Recently, somebody asked me if monks and nuns can give blessings to lay people. I answered that we do not have any special spiritual quality within ourselves to give blessings. However, we can invoke the blessings of Amida Buddha by touching lay devotees or any beings on the head with the Nenju and saying Nembutsu. We can also touch them with a folded kesa or a statue of Amida Buddha. In this way, we can also help beings create a connection with Amida Buddha and his Dharma if they've had no connection until then. Actually, even lay people can use their Nenju, their lay kesa or a statue of Amida Buddha as an invocation for Amida's blessing and to help any being create a connection with Amida Buddha. As faith is equally shared by lay devotees as well as monks or nuns, they can both do that. The fact that a monk or nun might be more devoted than a lay person in spreading the Dharma does not give him special capacities to bless, because all the blessings and power belong to Amida Buddha alone. However, it is good for monks and nuns to do the above gestures, especially to beings who do not have faith, but ask for a blessing. Turn the topic to the Dharma. In whatever circumstances you are, try to turn the topic to the Dharma, or at least say a few useful Dharma words, especially if you are with your members and lay students. Always think of how to benefit sentient beings and help them make even the smallest connection with Amida Buddha. Be a good strategist and work for the conversion of all. Use every situation for the ultimate goal of bringing everybody to the Pure Land. Always check the understanding of your members. In our days, many Buddhist teachers are very permissive in matters of faith and doctrine, in the sense that they allow their members to believe whatever they want and say anything that comes into their minds, even if it's a wrong view or a wrong belief, for the sake of keeping them in the Sangha at all cost. This is a grave mistake. A teacher, whether lay or ordained, must always be very strict with the way the Dharma is taught and understood and accepted in his community. Discipline has to be maintained in teaching matters and behavior of members, because a good orthodox environment is vital for the Dharma transmission. It is always better to have a few members, or even no members at all, than being surrounded by heretics and slanderers. If we want our Amidaji to last long and help many generations, we must be careful about whom we accept in our Sangha, as well as what members think and do in matters of faith and doctrine. As teachers, we do not intervene in people's private lives, and we do not judge them on how they choose to live, whether they are making moral choices or not. But we do ask of them, as long as they want to be members of our Sangha, to never deviate from the teaching and faith we promote at Amidaji. Our Sangha is a ship that has to be properly maintained by a dedicated and disciplined crew, so that it can bring more beings to the true teaching and true faith. Lay teachers, monks and nuns are the officers of this ship we call Amidaji, and it depends on them to maintain it on the right course towards the Pure Land of Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Bu. There are 6 important footnotes in this section, entitled Some Advice to Monks and Nuns. The first important footnote refers to the sentence, "Unlike other schools, to become a monk or nun in Amidaji branch means that you have the right and responsibility to teach, which is why I cannot give this type of ordination to anybody just because he or she wants it." The footnote states, in other traditions, anybody can ordain just like that without too much problems, and learning is done after ordination. This is because one does not automatically become a teacher after ordination. However, in a Amidaji branch of Jodo Shinshu, one has to first know the Dharma well in order to be ordained, because all ordained members are teachers. The second important footnote refers to the sentence, "I do not give a shit about the so-called peace of mind of ordained members." The footnote states, in samsara, there is no actual peace but transitory moments of limited satisfaction. A monk or nun should try to teach no matter how he or she feels. The third important footnote refers to the sentence, "Do not sacrifice your Dharma duty for marriage, family, relatives, and friends, but also do not think they're at fault for your laziness." The footnote states, also, do not sacrifice your Dharma duty for your so-called peace of mind, or for enjoying silence and solitude. The fourth footnote refers to the sentence, "There is absolutely no time when you are not a monk or nun." The footnote states, even when you are not wearing your robes and kesa due to various reasons, you are still a monk and nun. In Romania, we have a saying that the priest is a priest, even in his underwear. The fifth important footnote refers to the sentence, "Thus, even when you are with your family, if somebody sincerely asks you a Dharma question, you shall not postpone to answer it, as you never know what will happen next with that being." The footnote states, you may have a rest and recuperation time when you take care of your health and family, but be careful to not become lazy, nor sacrifice your Dharma duties for worldly activities and enjoyments. The sixth and final important footnote refers to the sentence, "These instructions are not based on any matter of purity or impurity, but to prevent some spirits who might wish to approach you at the sight of the holy robes and kesa from turning away in fear and disgust due to the presence of corpses. Cooked meat is actually this corpse of someone, or alcohol." The footnote states, "Some spirits and gods do not like the smell of alcohol and meat, or garlic and onion, so it's better not to use them in the temples and dojos."